Welcome to the Book Party Podcast. Join us as we journey into the world of books with Michael T. Prepare to be captivated by engaging interviews, insightful discussions, and fascinating stories. You'll discover new adventures and gain insight into the creative process of the authors themselves as they share their struggles and accomplishments. Now let's hear from Michael T.
This is Michael T., and I thank you for being with us this morning. To all our listeners, I would ask you to go to bookpartypodcast.com. That's bookpartypodcast.com. Hit that subscribe tab on top, then go down to the icon of your choice where you can find us on one of your favorite platforms. Download us, and then you can follow us from there. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter to get the latest information on our upcoming shows. Today, I would like to introduce our guest, W.D. Kilpack III, and his book, Crown Prince. W.D. Kilpack III, MPC, PSMC, and is an award-winning and critically acclaimed internationally published writer with works appearing in print, online, radio, and television, starting with his first publication credit at the age of 9, when he wrote an award-winning poem. As an adult, his first novel was Crown Prince, but has also written Order of Light and Demon Seed, Rolari, and Paleface. Each received the Firebirds Book Award, while Crown Prince and Order of Light received the Bookfest Award. Demon Seed is recently an other editor's choice on Bookshelf, and previously Order of Light was a top pick. He also received special recognition from L. Ron Hubbard's Writer of the Future contest for his novella. Paleface, in total, his books have received 17 awards. He has been editor and or publisher of 19 news and literary publications, both online and in print, with circulations as high as 770,000. He is a partner in Safe Harbors Films, LLC, where he does their screenwriting and oversees their marketing efforts. Bill, why don't you take it from here, fill the blanks, and tell our listeners a little bit about you.
Well, where do I start? I went to school at Westminster College of Salt Lake City. I got both my bachelor's and my master's degrees there. In my undergrad, I double majored in communication and philosophy. And in my master's, it's in professional communication, where I emphasize writing. And I've got 5 kids and helped raise 5 more. And I coached wrestling for 20 years and taught at the college level for 25.
You got some quite accomplishments, that's for sure. So, in publishing journey that you've had, in the beginning, were you a self-published author, or have you always went with agencies? How did you start this out?
Well, before my novels, I guess I've always been freelance. That because of my journalism background, I was freelancing with mostly news, but I also poetry and fiction, short stories, that sort of thing. With my novels, then they've been self-published, and I am a one-man band as far as that goes. I do the cover art, I do the layout and design, I do all the marketing, and so as far as being independent, I'm definitely that. There's no collaborators, there's no team that works with me on that. It's just me.
So even now you're still that way?
Yep. And on the one hand, I do really like that I get to make all the decisions. I get to decide where to put my efforts. On the other hand, it's all my efforts. And so I do plan that when things, hopefully when things get to where I want them to be someday, then I'll be able to farm out some of the pieces. For one thing, I do have a pretty good art background, but art takes a lot longer than writing. And so that's one of the things that eventually I'll probably be farming out. I really do enjoy it, but it just takes a lot more time.
Sure. So basically you're an indie author then.
Yep.
You do everything from start to finish. And that's commendable. It's a lot more work to be an indie author. On my first book, I tried to do my own cover, and it was an absolute disaster. And never again. I'm on my third now, and it should be out next week, I'm hoping. It should be published, and I just never will design another cover. It's not in me to try and do that. So,
well, like I said, I do enjoy doing it, but it's very time consuming.
Take us to a point in time of what you would consider. Now, you've done a lot of different novels. You've done some short stories and things like that. Take us to a point in time what you would consider your worst author moment, and tell us that story.
Well, my journey as far as writing has always been pretty positive. But if I had to pick something as the worst, was getting Rilari out this past year. My plan was to get it out in December, but Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will. And in this case, you'd think that with it being my fifth book, that I'd have figured out all the kinks in the hose, but I had so many things go wrong, and things that, I thought I had the process down, but I just had so many things go wrong that it put me back 6 weeks. And so it didn't end up coming out until February. But I had issues with the file itself, that I had problems with the backup file, and the file got corrupted, and I had to go back and fix a bunch of stuff that was, of course, just horribly frustrating, to say the least. I had problems with the cover artwork. I had problems with uploading the files to Amazon, that some goofy little things where at the end of the sentence, if it was a lowercase f and it was in italics, then it would not accept it. And things like that were because the margins were a little bit funky, and just a lot of things. I can't even name them all. There were so many, but just a lot of things that put me back 6 weeks. And that was really embarrassing to me, because I had been announcing for 3 months that it was coming in December, and it didn't end up coming until February. And it was just one after another. I'd get one fixed and think, okay, this is it. Go to publish, and boom, there'd be the next one. And I'd just be like, are you kidding me? And so that was probably the worst moment. It was just a whole lot of, okay, there can't be anything wrong with it now, and then, a big bucket of water, because then there's another one.
It's the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah. And so I guess I got cocky thinking that I'd figured it all out, because there were a whole bunch of things that, I don't know if I got lucky on the first 4, but that one I sure just had a lot of problems that I did not plan for, didn't have to face with the first 4, and they all just, sat up and looked ugly right there, all in a row.
Now, this next question, I know you're going to say you've had a lot of these because you've had a lot of books, but I want you to come up with one, if you can, just one, take us to a point in time of an incredible, when the light bulb goes off in your head, an epiphany moment. You could have been doing anything. Getting ready to go to bed, driving, helping your wife in the kitchen, whatever it might be. An epiphany moment. Wow, oh, I got to get a pen. I got to write this down. Tell us about an incredible moment like that.
Well, probably the biggest aha moment for me wasn't riding related. It was as an athlete that I wrestled for 12 years and I qualified to represent the United States in Greco-Roman wrestling. And there was a guy that we were the same age and going through the age groups. At the big tournaments, I would always go check to see where he was at. And he was always a weight below me. And so one year he didn't make weight. And so not only was he in my weight, but I had him first round. And so I went out and there were some things about him that in his style that my dad, who was one of my coaches, we always studied him because we knew that someday it's going to happen. So there was some things about his wrestling style that we had planned for. Why don't people just do this? And so when I wrestled him, I did these things and they worked. And so I ended up, if you got ahead by 12 points, they stopped the match. It's called a technical fall. It's kind of like a TKO in boxing. And so this guy was a world champion, and I teched him out in about 20 seconds. And when we stood up, he had gone pale, and I gave him a hug, and I told him that I had dreaded wrestling him for years. And he looked at me, he sat back and looked at me like it was this bizarre thing, and he said, "Yeah, me too." And that was this moment where I went, whoa, that's where I'm at? That he didn't want to wrestle me? And that was the year that I won nationals once. That was the year that I won it. I was in the finals 9 times, but I won it once. That was the year that I qualified for the Pan Am team to represent the United States. That was the best year I ever had. But all of that came after that moment where he said that. And that was this huge realization that where I thought he was at this level, he thought I was at that level. And that was just this huge moment for me. And there's something about that as far as not just your confidence in the sport, but your confidence in life. And I ended up being world ranked that year, and a lot of that just carries on throughout life, no matter what you're doing.
That's correct. What is the one thing, and we'll talk about today, what is the one thing that you're most fired up about or excited about today, right now?
I am just really excited about the stuff with my books that I've been waiting so long. I wrote my first novel when I was 12, and my first fantasy novel, and I'm not saying it was great when I was 12, but that was when I wrote my first book. That was when I decided this is what I want to do. And so I ended up, and so I went down that path with publishing, with going out and freelancing with my poetry and short stories and all that. And then when I decided that I was ready, then I got married and I started having kids, and I needed a more steady income than I could have freelancing or even as a journalist. And so I put my books on the back burner until I'd raised my kids. And so now is the time where I get to focus on that. I get to finally get to pursue that dream. And so it is just so exciting to finally be able to do that, this thing that I've been wanting to do ever since I was 12 years old, to be able to go out and finally get to do the things that I've been wanting to do with that, and just take it to it and go to town, just like any opponent that I've ever had on the mat. Just go out there and go after it and not leave anything out there that I might regret one day. Just leave it all out there and just go for it. And that's what I'm doing, and I'm just excited about that.
That's where you're at now.
Yep.
Again, this is Michael T. Please go to bookpartypodcast.com. That is bookpartypodcast.com. Hit that subscribe tab, go down to the icon of your choice, and choose your favorite platform. Download it there where you can follow us. And if you enjoy our show, don't hesitate to leave a review. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter to get the latest information on our upcoming shows. Now we're entering the lightning round. We got 4-pointed questions for 4-pointed answers. Before you ever started writing, and I don't mean at 9 years old, what was holding you back from becoming an author in the first place?
Well, nothing really held me back. That I always had a lot of support. That I had teachers that supported me. My parents were very supportive, and so, I was always looking to freelance and submitting things and getting things published. I was hired as a writer for the first time when I was 15, and if anything held me back there, it's that they kept trying to send me to cover stories, and I kept having to say I couldn't do it. And they finally talked to me about that, and I had to say, well, it's because I don't have a driver's license. And they didn't know that I was 15, and so then they didn't fire me, which was great. But then they took back the editor position that they had given me. But, nothing has really held me back that other than maybe decisions that I'd made, like when I decided to hold off on my novels because I needed to focus on raising my family. But that, I don't view that as much as holding me back as that I needed to focus on other priorities.
Sure. What was the best advice in writing that you have ever received?
Well, I was reading an article in a in-flight magazine, and it was an interview with Louis L'Amour, and he's the Western writer. And so the opening question was this long paragraph about all these books that he's written and all the awards they've received, all these miniseries based on his books, all these movies based on his books, all the awards, blah, blah, blah. So the best advice that I've received was actually in a magazine. It was an in-flight magazine, and it was an interview with Louis L'Amour, and who wrote, all those Westerns. And there's this long paragraph talking about all the novels that he wrote that won all these awards, all these TV miniseries that won all these awards that were based on his books, all these movies based on his books that won all these awards. It's this long paragraph, blah, blah, blah. And then the last line was, how did you do it? And his answer was 2 words, and I thought it was profound. And I read this when I was like 14 or 15. And his answer was, I started. And that just struck me, that the whole thing, all these things that he had achieved, and he attributed it to, I started. And that affected me in terms of my work life, my school life, my education, everything that I do. That if there's something that is daunting, that has me feeling like I don't want to do this, or I'm apprehensive, then I start. If there's an assignment in school that I'm just like, oh crap, I don't want to do this, I start. I write a paragraph. And then, or if there's something, I've got an idea for a book, then that's just, I wake up because I had a dream and I have an idea. I'll write a paragraph to nail down the idea. But usually if I write a paragraph, I write another paragraph. A lot of times then I'll write another one. And then I've written a page. And then I've written 5 pages. And then I've written 10 pages. And it just goes like that. It gets the ball rolling. And that really affected me and rippled into all areas of my life. I start.
Okay. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Well, that again, that I start, that I don't. I mean, I mean, everybody procrastinates, but in general, I don't do a lot of procrastinating. I do tend to, once I start, then I go ahead and I start. I tend to stay at it until I'm done. And, for example, I was building a deck out in the backyard, and we had a guy that was doing some tree work. And at one point, I was a little lightheaded because it was really hot. And I stumbled while I was carrying these boards. And the guy that was doing this tree work, hurried over to see if I was okay. And he told me that first he asked me, "Have you taken a break?" And I said, "Well, no." He said, "Well, we've been out here the same amount of time, and I've had 3 breaks. You need to take a break. Sit down, take a break." And that's just how it is. That one thing with wrestling is that wrestling is the hardest sport there is. And if you have been successful in wrestling, then you have to have a really powerful work ethic. And otherwise you just can't make it. And so again, that carries over into everything that going through. And if a lot of times when people complain about this being hard or that being hard, well, I've seen hard, and that doesn't really compare to this. Or there's a lot of stuff that people say is hard that I think, well, that's not hard compared to cutting 11 pounds in 45 minutes or, things like that. There's a lot of things that are harder than that I've done, but, so.
Okay. In your writing, share an internet resource that you can share with our listeners.
Well, there's a website that I use a lot. It's kind of a funny thing. People always say, "Why do you use that?" There's a website. It's a rhyming dictionary, and I don't use it for the rhyming, but because it actually has a whole bunch of different resources in it. But that's what it's called. It's a rhyming dictionary. But it has a regular dictionary. It has a thesaurus, a bunch of different things in there. But because it has all these different types of dictionaries in it, all in one place, then I use that a lot. And so that's one. Another is there's a website that I use for if I have to manually hyphenate. This usually comes in when I'm doing the paperback version of my books and laying things out. Then a lot of times I'll have to manually hyphenate things to make the layout work out in the last stage of tweaking. Just those last little bits that have me saying all kinds of words at the last minute.
Right. Okay, well, now we're going to enter the grand finale. In the grand finale, you might tell us a couple of places to find your book or get a hold of you if someone wants to ask a question or follow you or that sort of thing. And with the links, when yours goes live, there's actually a description of a podcast that those links will be out there anyway. I'll put those links on there. But this is the area I want you to tell us about your book, Crown Prince.
Okay. Well, Crown Prince is the first of an 8-book series called the New Blood Saga. And Crown Prince is the main character. His name is Nathar, and he is the guardian of Merrick. And what inspired Nathar was actually something that I came up with in college. That one of my degrees is in philosophy, and I was fascinated by Socrates. And Socrates would go into sort of a trance-like state where he would literally go into a trance and then come out of it, with some sort of profound epiphany. And I just thought that was amazing. And so I wanted to have a character that would do something like that. And so Nathar would go into, and Socrates called that being seized by the demon of philosophy. And so Nathar is seized by the demon of sight. And so sometimes he'll go into a trance-like state and he'll see the future. Or he might see the past. He'll see things that are not from the current time. And so that is part of being the guardian of Merrick. And so with Crown Prince Nathar and his father before him, who also was the guardian of Merrick, they have foreseen the collapse of the current ruling family. And so they have made plans for decades to be able to escape with the Crown Prince. And he's newborn. They've made plans that in order to get out. And Crown Prince starts with the first chapter is the birth of the Crown Prince and the events that lead up to that, getting out while the city is under siege, and then escaping and going into the Ancient Wood, where basically, because the Ancient Wood is where mankind was created and the powers of creation are still there. And so what that means is that there's all kinds of creatures there that are sort of the creatures of mythology, a lot of great beasts that are mythological beings, mythological creatures that normal humans, which in this series they're called the A'a, normal humans are afraid of these things. So they're not real likely to go to the Ancient Wood, which is why Nathar went there. And so it's the story of Nathar taking the Crown Prince with Darshell, who is the baby's wet nurse. And so it's the story, it's dealing with one thing, traveling with a newborn, which a lot of that stuff is very real. And, I've got 5 kids. It's real. That's the stuff with traveling with newborns. And there's a lot of stuff in terms of dealing with a lot of different things with different cultures, a lot of culture clash because she's from another country. There is a lot of action in terms of some fight scenes that are pretty intense, and dealing with a lot of things that are to a certain extent are pretty frightening in terms of dealing with some of these different creatures that are in the Ancient Wood, because by and large, the Ancient Wood is sort of alive, that it has sort of its own intelligence to a certain extent, and you don't want to make it angry. And so there's something to that. So with that one of the things I love is having bad guys that you love to hate. And so Crown Prince is setting the stage for the rest of the series, and there are some characters in here that you love to hate. And some of them, I've read all my books. All 8 of them are written, and I've read them all to my wife, and I can just say the names of some of the characters and she'll have an emotional response. She'll make noise and faces and stuff like that, and I love that. I love having people have a very emotional, visceral response. And I had just today, I had a little mini review from another author that with Crown Prince, who he called it Shakespearean, and that is one of the coolest things that I've heard, and I think that's awesome. And so it is a little dark. It is a little there's some stuff that happens that is gives you a little bit of a twinge, a little bit of a cringe, but you get to care about these people. And that's one thing, is that on another podcast, the host said that even though it's fantasy, they're living real lives. And so that's one thing that I do describe my style as realistic fantasy. That, yes, there's magic, but it's not the kind of stuff like fireworks. It's more subtle. And so, if as far as learning more about Crown Prince and about the other books in the series, 4 of them are out now. Order of Light is book 2, Demon Seed is book 3, and Rilari is book 4, which just came out this February. Then my website is kilpack.net. That's KILPACK.net. And that's sort of the communication hub for my dreams. And I've got all kinds of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There's a lot. And I've got links to all that there, and I'll send you the links also. But kilpack.net is everything radiates out from there. There's purchase links. There's stuff if you want to order autographed copies. There's stuff if you're listening from other countries. There's links to Amazon internationally off my shop page. But kilpack.net is the hub of all that.
So Kilpack.net has all of the other links in it also.
Yep. And
so by hub, it has everything
yep.
in there. So that's just the main one anyway.
Yep. It's got information about me, if you care. It's got information about, it's got reviews. It's got photos, people sending me pictures of themselves holding my books, which is awesome. And who knew? And when you can sign up for my newsletter and I send you the vows of the Knights of Ril, and people started videoing themselves reciting the vows and sending them to me. And that's awesome. And it's just been an amazing experience. And the support from readers and critics, all these nightmares about critics and that nightmare stories, and the critics have been amazing. And so I just can't say enough about how humbling it's been and how really appreciative and grateful that I am for the feedback that I've had from around and from the writing community and people like yourself. And I just appreciate it a lot. I can't find the words.
Again, this is Michael T. Please go to bookpartypodcasting.com. That's bookpartypodcasting.com. Hit that subscribe tab. Go down and choose your favorite platform. You can download us from there and enjoy our show. Don't hesitate to leave a review. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and get to the latest information on our upcoming shows. Book Party Podcast is owned and powered by MTM Legacy Publishing, LLC. This is Michael T. signing off.
You must not miss our next episode as we delve into a world of inspiration, entertainment, and thought-provoking insights. Join Michael T. on the next Book Party Podcast and experience a new adventure, a new story, and a complete immersion into the world of Pages Unveiled, Chronicles of the Writing Journey.